Chapter 11 of Zhang Henshui's Golden Pink Family. The poet with unique wisdom is suspicious of the drunken words. It's very interesting that the lady has European style. The sound of applause spread from near to far to the wall of the Leng family. At this time, Qingqiu picked up a rattan chair, took a novel, and lay down in the shade of the date tree to enjoy the coolness. Suddenly hearing such a loud noise, she asked Mother Han, "Nanny, what's going on here?" Mother Han said, "My girl, you really forget things. Master Jin just sent you snacks. Didn't you say we were treating guests over there?" Qingqiu then remembered that they were opening a poetry club to compose poems. What a joy it was. Listen to that voice. Right behind the room. Behind this room is a small courtyard, leaning against a short pink wall. On the top of the wall are rows of tiled betel nut holes. I thought, secretly take a look at how this poetry club was established. So I took a small ladder, leaned against the wall, climbed up, stretched my head, and looked into the betel nut eyes. The place where they met was a large open hall under the locust tree. From here, you can see clearly. Inside, Yanxi was seen huddled together with a group of well-educated friends. Among them was a man with a papaya face and a small yellow beard, gesticulating and saying, "Wait a minute, let's not randomly decide the leader. We haven't learned the master's masterpiece yet." Everyone said yes. "We are busy. How could I forget the protagonist's masterpiece for a while?" The little yellow beard walked up to Yanxi, patted his shoulder, and said with a smile, "Brother Yanxi, your poem was personally instructed by the Prime Minister. You have a strong family background. No matter how you write it, it will be better than ours." Yanxi smiled and said, "Don't make fun of me. I'm in a hurry, and I won't be able to catch up with you." After saying that, he took a few pieces of letter paper and handed them to them. Qingqiu has studied Chinese with her father since she was a child, and learned to compose poems and write lyrics. Although she has not been promoted to a high school, it is difficult to distinguish good from bad when reading poetry. She had long heard that Yanxi could compose poetry, and she thought that their playboys might not be able to write good things. Now that I have this opportunity, how about reading his poems? Unfortunately, I am not a man. If I were a man, I would definitely be an uninvited guest and squeeze in to see his masterpiece. But when she was thinking like this, she saw the little yellow beard patting his thigh with his hand and saying, "A poem like this can be considered a rhythmic poem, and a poem like this can be considered a Wing Chun rain. I say, Brother Yan, his family background is really good." The little yellow beard praised him for a while, and all the people came to look at him. Little yellow beard said, "You are so crowded that you can't see. Why don't you let me read it to you?" Then he read loudly, "The newly planted bananas are surrounded by green leaves, and the hanging curtains helplessly make a gurgling sound. The clouds cover the courtyard, the trees in the poetry window are cold, and the pear blossoms and swallows are busy behind the door. At first sight, the lakes and mountains are opening into a painting, but I am surprised by the plum blossoms and willows crossing the river pass. The small building once dreamed of the end of the world, only in the green lamp and bright mirror." Among these people, Kong Zuni was more capable, so he didn't take these people seriously in the first place. Nowadays, Yanxi's poems are composed in a stable and smooth manner, which is unexpected. I thought to myself, when did he, who has never been a big reader, learn to compose poetry? No matter what, I have to refute him and not let him get so much limelight. Then he asked, "Brother Yanxi, every sentence in this poem is not spring rain, but every sentence is spring, and every sentence is rain." But about the word plum, everyone just had some objections, saying it was not in line with the season. Yanxi was when he retorted. He didn't know how to agree to it, and looked at Song Runking. Song Runking was about to say it, but now that Yanxi wanted him to say it, he couldn't help it. He said, "Mr. Kong, you have misunderstood what Brother Yanxi meant. The plum he mentioned is not plums, but plum blossoms." The two words plum and willow in the same place in the poem always refer to plum blossoms, not plums. Spring. Plum blossoms are the earliest to bloom, and willows are also the earliest to sprout. When describing the coming of spring, plum blossoms and willows are the most reliable words. After hearing this, Shen Kongzong stretched his head forward and approached with his myopic eyes. Written by Song Runking. Song Runking was startled when he saw a head stretched out in front of him. When I looked carefully, it turned out that it was Shen Kongzong who came to talk with a smile on his face. Song Runking asked, "Mr. Shen, what do you have to say?" Shen Kongzong said, Mr. Song, I admire your words very much. The plum I mentioned also refers to plum blossoms, so I have been chanting Huang Mai every day. The word open is used in the dark, which is a sign of the so-called poetic eye. There is only talk of blooming, not fruit. So, of course, I am talking about yellow plum blossoms. It's a plum blossom. Mao's poem, there are plum blossoms, but they are actually 7. That plum is a plum. Qingqiu saw the soreness in Betel Nut's eyes on the wall and couldn't help but laugh. She climbed down the ladder slowly and laughed for a while leaning on the ladder. Then I stroked my hair for a while and walked to the front yard. Mrs. Leng saw it and asked, What's the matter? Are you laughing like this alone? Qingqiu said, Just now I saw a group of people composing poetry next door through the hole in the wall. Their sour look was really funny. Mrs. Leng said, Don't talk nonsense. Mr. Jin's knowledge is very good. Qingqiu said sternly, His poems are quite good. I heard people reciting them. How can a man with such a young master's temper be able to write such good works? Poetry. That's unexpected. Mrs. Leng said, Their family has plenty of money. If they study in a school, their family will hire a husband to teach him, so his writing will be better. Qingqiu said, Uncle is there too. When he comes back later, I want to ask who are those people. Mrs. Leng said, Why did your uncle join them? In fact, he has to interact with these people all the time. That's much better than being entangled with some irrelevant people. I think your uncle's articles are far inferior to Mr. Jin's. Her mother and daughter said this, thinking that Song Runking was not as good as Jin. Yanxi. In fact, Yanxi was in the limelight today and admired Song Runking very much. In the evening, Song Runking came back drunk and woke up, shouting all the way into the house, saying, I'm biased against you and my daughter. I made a lot of new friends today. Among them were Mr. Kong's young master, Mr. Meng's young master, and Mr. Yang. There are many section chiefs. Next time it will be Mr. Kong's house. I know that his house is very nice. I would like to visit it. Mr. Kong is a very humble person. Sitting together, you and I are brothers. Conversation without any grudges, and Mr. Meng is also very good, but he is young and a bit naughty. In terms of qualifications, except for the 3 young masters, all of the dozen or so people here are more qualified than me. Some, Qingqiu said with a smile, My uncle is really addicted to officialdom. He drinks and composes poems, and he has to compare his official rank with others. Song Runking said, Girl, you are not a man, so you don't want to do it. Official. But let me ask you again, when your uncle comes to you in the future, would you rather be a disciple of an official family or an ordinary disciple? Qingqiu said with a straight face, I'm drunk. Just talking nonsense here. It doesn't look like an old-timer at all. After that, he went into the house. Song Runking laughed loudly when he saw it, walked crookedly all the way, and went back to the house to sleep. In his mind, his niece scolded her too much, so there was really no other meaning in taking revenge. After listening to it in Qingqiu, it seemed that her uncle had a reason for letting Song Runking go, so she said to her mother, Mom, Uncle drank a lot today. Look at his words, he is confused. Mrs. Leng said with a smile, You know what he said when he was drunk, so just ignore him. Qingqiu said, You can't mention this properly even when you're drunk. Mrs. Leng said, Your uncle meant what he said, but didn't mean it, let alone when he was drunk. Ignore him. Seeing that his mother kept telling him to ignore him, Qingqiu stopped chasing him. The next day, Qingqiu saw Song Runking and said, Uncle, you drank a lot yesterday, right? Song Runking smiled and said, I'm quite happy tonight. Qingqiu smiled at him and thought, You said good things to say. But when he said this sentence, he couldn't hold it back. Song Runking couldn't predict what she meant, so naturally, he didn't know what she meant. Seeing her smile, he also smiled and said, Don't look at my uncle who has no hobbies. He just likes these 2 cups, and his money is very limited. Qingqiu asked, Uncle was so drunk yesterday, could he compose poems? Song Runking asked, What are you doing? Of course you have to compose poems. Qingqiu said, Did Uncle copy all these people's poems? Show me the poem manuscript. Song Runking said, My own poem manuscript is here. I didn't copy theirs. Qingqiu said, Have I read to many of Uncle's poems? What do people do? Song Runking said, It's okay if you don't read their poems. I have 2 poems written by Yanxi, which are quite good. As he said this, he felt in the bag for a while and took them out. A volume of manuscript was handed over to Qingqiu. Qingqiu asked, "How come this word is my uncle's handwriting?" Zhang Henshui said, "This was originally. I copied it." Qingqiu read the poem again, holding a handkerchief in his hand, supporting his chin, and clicked nod. I saw that Yanxi's poems were clear and coherent, and seemed to be not even inferior to her uncle's. Zhang Henshui said, "What do you think? How does it compare to your uncle?" Qingqiu smiled and said, "The writing skills are the same, but the words are more beautiful than my uncle." Zhang Henshui said with a smile, "You have good eyesight, and you finally didn't say anything about me. Not as good as others." After saying that, he walked away with a smile. When Qingqiu read the poem, she felt that the meaning was not complete and wanted to sing with him. Walking back to the house, I walked to the desk and was about to start writing an inkstone. Suddenly I saw a letter leaning on the pen holder. It read, "Please give it to Miss Leng, Qingqiu Yezhen." The handwriting was exactly that of Yanxi. When I saw this, my heart skipped a beat. I thought, this must be brought by the wet nurse. How could she do this ridiculous thing and put it on the table? If my mother saw this and asked about it, how would she respond? When she was thinking this way, she had already taken the letter in her hand and put it in her bag. After taking a look, there was no one outside the house, so she lay on the bed, took out the letter and read it. Although her eyes were looking at the letter, her ears were listening for any noise outside the window. She slowly tore the letter open with her hands, and a burst of fragrance hit her nose. What was pulled out was a piece of water-red foreign letter paper with small lines and dots densely arranged around it. The word was written in blue ink, which made it look very beautiful. The letter was written in a language style. I copied the 2 poems just now and asked for your advice. Qingqiu felt that he was too polite and ignored him all the time, which was unkind, so he wrote an 8-line poem, praising his poem. The letter was written and enclosed in an envelope, marked personally signed by Mr. Jin Yanxi. But although the letter was written, I had no idea of sending it. He casually stuffed the letter under his pillow. It was said that it would be safest to have Mother Han give it away, but I was too embarrassed to take it out. If you take it to the post office in person, let it be mailed. I thought to myself that my uncle often goes there. If he didn't know it and just put the letter on the table casually, it would be inconvenient for his uncle to read the handwriting by accident. After thinking about it for a long time, there was no good plan, so he called Mother Han and said, "Nanny, come here." Mother Han rolled up her sleeves, wet her hands, walked into the room, smiled, and said to Qingqiu, "I am doing laundry, girl. What did you ask me to do?" Qingqiu paused before swallowing the words. He also said, "I'm very thirsty. Make a pot of water from those chrysanthemums." Mother Han said, "Oh, it's okay for you to lie down. Just go and make a pot of water yourself." As she said this, she wiped her hands with her apron, was about to open the cupboard to get the chrysanthemums. Qingqiu said, "Don't take it, it will save you trouble. There is tea at Mom's place, so I'll just go and have a sip of herbal tea." Mother Han said, "Look, what's going on when you ask people to come but don't go?" Qingqiu said with a smile, "Aren't you afraid of trouble? I'll save you the trouble." Mother Han couldn't figure out what she was thinking, so she went out again. Yanxi has written 2 letters over there, but has not seen any response and has not received any reply. I don't know why. After waiting for a while in the morning, Han's mother didn't come. In the afternoon, I wanted to show my father the poem manuscript, so I took the car and went home. First, he fooled around in his study for a while, and then went to the upper room to find his father. After entering the moon gate, he saw Miley walking from the west courtyard with a smile on her face, carrying a basket of 1,000-leaf pomegranate flowers threaded with copper wire. Yanxi said, "Hey, where did this flower basket come from? It looks like a fireball from a distance." Miley said with a smile, "Today is the birthday of the 3rd sister-in-law's old aunt, didn't you know?" Yanxi said, "Stop talking nonsense. An old man in his 50s or 60s wants you to give her such a bright red thing. If someone in their 10s or 22nd gets married, she might use it in her new house." Miley said, "It belongs to Aunt Wang. Why do you want me to give it as a gift? I gave this flower basket to Sister Zhaoxia." Yanxi smiled and said, "Yes, her mother is very close to you. It's her mother's birthday, so it doesn't matter if you give her a flower basket." "What do you mean?" Miley said, don't you know? There is a party at her house today. Yanxi said, with a smile. Of course you are among them. It's just a show. I heard that there are some Japanese tricks. I have to go and see them. I haven't seen Zhaoxia for a long time. I saw her today. I gave her a basket to make her happy. Brother Qi, do you want one too? Don't you want to call Sister Shuju? Yanxi said. Why can't you forget her? Mai Li said with a smile. Are you two really annoyed? Yanxi said calmly. She smiled and said, look. She then asked, do you know where Dad is? Mai Li said, I don't know what happened today. I went out early in the morning, and I haven't come back yet. Yanxi said, with a smile. That's great. He handed a paper bag to Mai Li and said, when Dad comes back, just give this to him and say I got it. Mai Li said, you may have just come back. Are you leaving again? Yanxi said, I'm not leaving. I'm still looking for Sixth Sister. Mai Li said, we'll go back to Wang's house to watch the show. Yanxi said, he said, I'm not sure when to go. Maybe I won't go. As he spoke, he actually came to Runzi's yard. Her two sisters, one was an American student and the other was a French student, both of whom had Western habits. So their diet and daily life were also Europeanized. Outside their house was a corridor with green painted railings. In the corridor, there was a hanging bed on one side and a movable chair on the other side, which was set up for the two sisters to read books. There were a few tennis rackets hanging on the white wall, but now they were gone. Yanxi guessed that her two elder sisters must have gone to the big yard at the back to play tennis. At this time, there must be no one in the house. I thought I might steal one or two of their favorite things and have a joke with them. I pushed the door open and went in. Sure enough, it was quiet inside. When I went to Runzi's room, I saw a small silver threaded net plate on her table. There were many scenic postcards. I picked it up and looked at it. There were ancient theaters, sculptures of the Statue of Liberty, and many great buildings. On the letter paper, there was English printed in red, indicating that it was a scene of Rome. I turned over the other side and saw that it was a letter from Runzi's fiancé Fengyu. There were letters in French and Chinese, and the date was Saturday. So, probably one letter was sent back every week. Yanxi didn't know French, so he threw the French letter away and picked up a Chinese letter to read. On that one was written, Lusha, I visited the Roman Colosseum today. I can't describe the greatness of the architecture, but many people regard Rome as a model of world architecture, which is not good. I think that man-made and natural, each has its own merits, and only in this way, it conforms to art. I wish you good health. You bathe two words Lusha are Runzi's French name, Fang. You translated it into Chinese. He thought that writing foreign names directly was a sign of love between them. Then he looked at another one, Lusha. I went to the barber shop on Kazier Road again today. Of course, you have to suspect that I didn't go to get a haircut or shave, but to get my nails done. But I want to tell you a good news. The affectionate nail dressing woman I mentioned before has been fired by the owner. I guess the new female worker today is a dancer in a low-class hotel. I dare not offend her. I wrote it to make you laugh. I wish you peace of mind. Your honest friend. You. Yanxi read it and envied their sweet and interesting love letters. He thought it would be good to learn from them. He simply picked up the letters one by one and read them. They were written in Chinese, and he didn't miss a single one. Just when he was reading with interest, he heard footsteps outside the yard. It seemed that Runzi had returned. He quickly threw down the letter and greeted him. Runzi was wearing a white sportswear, walking and jumping on the stone steps. Behind him, the eldest lady from Jiangsu, Anan, came in with a tennis net and a racket. Yanxi said, Sixth sister, who did you play ball with? Why did you come back alone? Runzi pointed at Anan and said, I played ball with her. Yanxi smiled at Anan. How about it? Can you play ball too? Anan put down her things and said with a smile, Sixth sister wanted to satisfy her craving for ball, but no one was with her, so I had to reluctantly play. Yanxi said, I dare not compete with fifth sister and sixth sister. Since you can play, that's great. I have to learn from you. Runzi supported the pillar on the corridor with one hand and held her gauze top with the other hand, facing the wind to enjoy the cool. After hearing Yanxi's words, he squinted at him and smiled. Just you? Yanxi said, Sixth sister, what you said is contempt for me to the extreme. I can't beat these two brave generals, but this one under your command. Runzi rushed to say, Anan, he laughed at you for being an unknown pawn, you try it with him. Yanxi was happy for a moment, so he said, okay, let's try it. Anan smiled at Yanxi and said nothing. Seeing that she was not afraid, Yanxi came over, picked up a racket, patted Anan's shoulder gently, and said, go, let me try. Runzi pinched Anan's right eye and smiled. Anan, you should fight for your courage, don't lose the whole gem. Anan smiled and took the racket again, all the way to the big yard at the back, and Runzi followed behind to watch. The two set up a net on the light green grass. Let Anan serve first. Anan didn't want to show her skills, and sent the ball to Yanxi properly. Yanxi saw that she served the racket very naturally, not lifting it up, but just holding it flat, and sent it with the momentum, expecting that the ball would fall 3 steps away from her, and Anan might not be able to catch up. Who knew that she had expected Yanxi to do this? She had already rushed forward, and her braids, which looked like black silk tassels, swayed in the wind, just like a startled wild goose. She took 2 steps forward and stood still. She stretched out her hand to hold the ball, and quietly sent it over the net. When Yanxi was about to catch it, the ball fell into the grass and rolled a few times, but did not jump up. So Yanxi only moved 1 step and stopped. He turned around, shrugged, and smiled at Runzi. Runzi smiled and said, who told you to attack me as soon as you came? Don't you believe the saying that there are no weak soldiers under a strong general? Anan held the racket in one hand and combed her hair with the other hand. She smiled at Yanxi and said, 7th master, let's be steady. Don't make such a fuss. Yanxi smiled and nodded in agreement, but he was eager to win, and he didn't hesitate to use violent means to cover up the shame of boasting. The second time Anan served, he used all his energy to throw the racket towards the ball, intending to throw it directly to the ground to avenge the previous ball. Unexpectedly, he used too much force, and the ball hit the top of the net, not too high or too low. If it was 2 inches higher, it would have passed. Yanxi saw this situation and knew that he would definitely not be able to win. This gem, at most, would be a tie. Thinking that if he really lost, it would be a bit self-contradictory, he took advantage of Runzi's laughter and threw the racket away, and said to Anan with a smile, I lost to you today. I have to rush to watch the Tongui opera. Let's play again in another day. On the grass, he picked up his clothes, put them on his arms and ran away. Runzi said with a smile, he is so boring. Whether he is playing chess or cards, he brags when he wins, and runs away when he loses. Yanxi ran to steps, turned back, and said with a smile, what are you busy with? There is plenty of time. You can come back another day. Does this mean that I have lost? Runzi said with a smile, I know that you can lose in reason, but not in anger, and lose in anger, but not in words. Yanxi said, I have already admitted that I lost. Is that not enough? I have a favor to ask of you. Please do me a favor. Runzi said, with a smile, what is it? Do you want to take French lessons? Yanxi said, you know, I am not here, for this is intentional trouble. Runzi said, do I really not know? Maybe you have no money to spend and want me to beg for money for you. Yanxi said, no. Runzi said, what else do you have to do? Haven't you had enough playing all day long? Yanxi wanted to say something, but saw Anan there, paused, and then said, will you go to the Wang family hall opera today? Runzi said, I won't go. What does this have to do with helping you? Yanxi said, you don't know, I have a girlfriend. She also wants to go to the opera. I think, if it's another family, I can send her. She went in. It was the Wang family. They knew our dog. How could they pretend to be one? I'll introduce her to you later, and say she's your friend, and ask you to take her there. Is that okay? Runzi said with a smile. What socialite did you know on the dance floor? Yanxi said, don't talk nonsense. She's a well-behaved female student. Runzi said, how do you know a well-behaved female student? Yanxi said, her uncle is a member of our poetry club, and she lives in her uncle's house. You tell me, can I know her or not? Runzi said, where is Miley going? Won't you ask Miley to take her? Yanxi said, I'm afraid Miley will go with mother. I don't want mother to know. Runzi said, in that case, it's still an improper action. Why should I be afraid of mother knowing about a proper action? Yanxi said, I don't need to tell you now. You will know when I introduce you to her later. Runzi said, "Don't you know that I don't like to listen to operas? How can I sit still for several hours? Fifth sister is planning to go to Wang's house. You can go find her." As he said that, he smiled and pointed forward. Minzi was holding a suit book and just came in from outside and sat on the movable chair. So he asked, "What are you pointing at me for?" "It's a trouble for you. Do you want him to trouble me?" Yanxi answered for Runzi, "It's not a trouble. If you go to Wang's house, please take someone to listen to the opera." Then he repeated what he had just said. Minzi thought that Yanxi liked to work hard in front of women. Maybe he agreed to it casually. "It is inconvenient to send her there myself, so I have to ask for help." He said, "Okay, I'll do you a favor and wait at home. You can bring her here." Yanxi was very happy to hear that. He shook hands with his sister and turned around and ran away. Minzi laughed and scolded, "Look at you. You are so useless." Yanxi ignored him and took the car back to Quanzi Hutong. After sitting at home for a while, he came to Leng's house and said to Mrs. Leng, "Aunt, my fifth sister wants to invite Miss Leng to come over for a talk, because there is an opera performance at my home, and she wants to accompany her to watch the opera." Mrs. Leng said, "Oh, how can that be? She is just a child and doesn't know any etiquette. Wouldn't it be impolite for her to go to your house?" Yanxi said, "Don't be polite, Aunt. We are also very casual. My fifth sister is especially casual. She just came back from the United States not long ago. I am afraid that Miss Leng knows the etiquette, but she doesn't know it yet. Fifth sister also said that she will call a car to pick her up soon, so I came to tell her first." When Mrs. Leng heard that Yanxi's sister came to pick up Qingqiu for a talk, she was already willing to do so. Then she heard that Yanxi's fifth sister was a student studying in the United States, and it would be good for Qingqiu to have a girlfriend like her, so she agreed immediately. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.